So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Saturday conversation for Saturday, the 28th of August. My name's Ruth Crosland. I'm a licensed lay minister within the Avon Valley Churches parish, which is in the northwest corner of the New Forest, basically around Fordingbridge. And it's my very great pleasure this morning to welcome to our conversation Hazel Ricketts. Now, morning Hazel, sorry.
Morning.
Some of you will have heard of Hazel. Some of you may have heard the product of Hazel, if I can put it like that, because Hazel is, as we may know and find out later, very musical. And some of you may have seen a bit of Hazel like this, or even more. So, Hazel, thank you. It's really good to see you this morning, and thank you for your time.
That's all right. It's good to be here.
Lovely. Good. Now, I consider ourselves a bit of the newbies on the block at Fordingbridge.
Yep.
I arrived sort of October, right in the middle of everything that was Zoom filled. And, you know, I've been working my way through saying hello to people in real life. But yes. I think you came a little after me, did you?
Officially, I seem to remember my first official day with Fordingbridge was day one of lockdown 2, which was just at the beginning of November.
Right.
So pretty similar, really.
And do you have a title within the Fordingbridge parish?
Yes, I am I'm co-director of music. Tim Ruffer also having the same title of co-director of music. So we are equal, and we both play the organ and we both direct the choir. As and when suits the music, the timetable. Who's played this anthem before? Actually, who played for Evensong last week, and so on and so forth. So it's sort of it's a very informal rather than a strict rotation or anything like that. But we both do the same job.
Right. Okay.
If that makes sense.
That makes sense to me, who's not at all musical, but I do enjoy music. So that makes some sense. So, Hazel, let's go back a little, if we may. Where do you hail from originally?
I grew up between Hastings and Rye in a tiny village by the names of Guestling. My parents still live there, literally in the middle of nowhere. That's sort of as in nearest neighbours are sort of quarter of a mile or half a mile or France, if you get it right. So it really is the middle of nowhere. It has undoubtedly the most wonderful church in the world. Do not dispute me on that. Which, parts of it are Saxon, quite a bit of it is Norman, and there are a few later bits, sort of 15th century, 16th century, and the Victorians had a go as well. So
well, they have a lot to answer for us.
Exactly.
Right? Yes, exactly.
Exactly, but it's in the Diocese of Chichester, but at the far end. So I very much grew up in church with being as far away from a cathedral in all senses as possible. I'm told that from Rye, which is sort of the far end of that diocese, there are 5 cathedrals closer, including 2 in France.
Oh, so on the fringe of the diocese, as it were.
Right at the furthest edge thereof, and very much little village church choir run by a little old lady, and who used to sit at the organ. She later taught me the piano. Very friendly, very village.
Right. So well versed in village life, although I know now you don't live in a village. Let's just go back to, so in your early life in this delightful church, what's the name of this church?
It's Guestling Church. It's St Lawrence Church, Guestling.
Right. So if anybody wants to go and look at this church, that's where you can find it, and that's Hazel has a good recommendation for it. So as a young child, as a young girl, church fundamental to your life as a family, or just you?
Dad never came to church, but Mum was a staunch, there every Sunday. If there's anything going on, Mum was making cakes and so on and she used to organise, and in fact, it's only 3 years since she gave it up due to her Parkinson's, but she did about 35 years worth of organising their flower festival, which was
Okay.
sort of their biggest fundraiser. But more than that, it was such a social event, 3 days of people coming into the place, which is just amazing. So yeah, Sundays have always been church, and ever since the age of 6, more or less, choir practice has always been on Fridays. That's part of the structure of life.
Right. So were you a singer first? Because you sing, I know, as well as play many instruments.
Yeah.
So were you identified as a singer, or was the singing going hand in hand with other musical instruments at the time? Or
I joined the choir when I was 6. There was a lady in the choir who started me off on the piano, and yeah, it kind of went from there, really.
you've never looked back, really?
No, no, not really.
Can you imagine a day without music in your
No,
life?
no. As a student, at one point, I had a wrist injury and I had to stop playing for several months, and I was horrible. I was really, really horrible. There's a meme that I spotted recently on Facebook, and it said, "Music isn't what I do; it's who I am."
Ah, right. I love that. That's a wonderful idea because there's a sort of phrase that sometimes people use in ministry, and maybe you can use it in music as well. Sort of an ontological person, somebody
Mm,
who is
yeah,
that person, who is that musical person or that ministry, that pastor person, rather than just being it, as a job, or somebody who is
absolutely.
being it, so that rather than doing it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it was interesting when Lockdown 1 appeared on the scene, because I remember vividly watching. I kind of have three strands to my um, career, if you like, which is I do peripatetic teaching in school. So I teach piano, clarinet, I have taught singing, I have taught theory, and so on. So that's sort of one element. I conduct choirs, as you know, but Wareham Choral is my secular choir, if you like,
Right.
and obviously the church music. And I kind of sat there and watched these strands all, the diary went from being stupidly busy
Yeah.
to completely empty. And I remember thinking, what do I do?
Yeah.
This is what I do. What do I do?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So that was quite interesting, and sort of finding myself something purposeful, and to define who I was as well at that point was interesting.
Right.
So
And you found it, I imagine.
yeah, I set myself something the way these things go. I'd been taking I enjoy walking, and obviously in lockdown we were allowed our daily exercise. And I've got two children, Sam, who is 14, and Katie, who is 12, who were spending the majority of their time with me. And we were doing our daily exercise, and we started taking photographs, putting them on Facebook. And if you want some photographs of the Salisbury area, there's loads on my Facebook page.
All right.
Hundreds and thousands, sort of thing. And I realised quite quickly that there were quite a few people who were self-isolating, who were literally not leaving the house. Various people got in touch with me and said, "I really appreciate your daily walks. You're taking us for a walk. You're getting me outside." And I kind of made that my mission, that actually, no matter how low I might be feeling, how bad the weather was, I was going to find something,
Mm.
even if it's just a handful of photos,
Mm.
to put on Facebook for those people who weren't even able to get outside and feel the rain and all the rest of it. So it kind of gave me a bit of a mission, which
Mm.
and a purpose, which
And did you do a sort of running commentary if you were out walking,
oh,
or
well, they were literally photos, and I kind of put a few captions to
right,
say, this is where we went, and this is where my daughter fell in the river today, and including, they took up tree climbing, and there was more than one instant of them getting wet,
right?
falling out. So it was quite good fun, and
Yeah.
so on. So
I think
yeah,
that's a wonderful idea because not only does it help you and the children, and gets you out and about, but it's something that spreads clearly and was well received, as you
It
said.
was. I mean, I was quite shocked by sort of various people who sort of never commented or acknowledged, obviously online, that they were looking at them. But when I saw them in person in various places, sort of said, "Oh, that always brightens my day. I always look out for that and that." And I thought, "Oh, this is really worthwhile, actually."
Yeah.
So it was sort of quite humbling, actually.
Yes. So it's I mean what we many of us have found is during this dreadful time of lockdown and
Mm.
closing down of so many things of our lives, something else has come out of it, hasn't it? Something has
Yes,
grown and developed, and it may be
yes,
a new skill, it may be a new contact, like you made a new connection that you've
yeah,
made with people.
yeah,
So that's an interesting take on what has been, from all of us, really a very dreadful time.
yes,
But there's been some element of good that's come out of it, thankfully. Thank God,
yes,
really.
yeah.
So yes, and
Connecting with people in a different way.
yes, which is important because we all need to do that. We need to think how we can do that.
Yeah,
And I think one of the things that surprised me, I suppose, when I joined AVP, was that, or AVC, was that so many people, and I have to say this is going to sound like an ageist comment, and I don't mean it. So
yeah,
many people who are much, much older were into Zoom, you
yeah.
know, and I thought this is fantastic, that
Hmm.
people are doing the Saturday conversations, doing the thoughts for the day, and age is not a barrier to this. So that's
No,
really, really been wonderful, hasn't it? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So now you don't live in Rye or Little Gesling.
No,
You live in a place that's much bigger. You live in Salisbury, or
I
on
do.
the outskirts of Salisbury, I think.
I do. I'm in Harnham these days.
Yeah,
Um, I actually moved here 2.5 years ago. Unfortunately, my husband and I separated. My children and my dog are part time with me.
right,
The dog goes with the children, who spend half their time with their father in a nearby village, and half the time with me.
right,
Um, but before that, we were in Fareham for too many years, 15 years. I went there to do my master's degree in music,
right.
and was only going to be there for 2 years. And yeah, 15 years, a husband and two children later, dot, dot, dot. Um, yeah, that was an interesting time. I joined the church choir there because that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And within 4 months found myself the person standing at the front, and I'm still not quite sure how that happened,
Well,
because there are those who can attest to the fact that I always said you would never find me conducting an ensemble, never.
I have a feeling there's a bit of a chip off the old block here because I expect at one point your mother went into your local church and said, I can do a bit of flower arranging.
And her
And
mum was a florist. She knew she could do flower
oh, right,
arranging.
oh, okay, so, but then, 35 years onward, she's still
Absolutely.
organising flower festivals for the church. So,
Absolutely. When she said she would help on the flower rota, they didn't quite know what they were getting, I think it's
no,
fair to
no,
say.
how wonderful. Interesting.
But
So you did an MA in music. Um,
yes,
I don't know a lot about these kind of things, but one of the things I think I know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you have to do a dissertation at the end, somewhere along the way, and you
you
have to
do.
do something that's particularly interesting to you. Can I ask,
Yes.
is that right? And what kind
That
of was the subject of your dissertation?
you can ask indeed. Said she thinking, I'll put this in layman's terms.
Yes, please.
Um, yeah, you also found me very early on in my undergraduate university career saying you'll never find me writing a dissertation, which I did during my time in Fareham. Um, somebody up there has been having a good laugh, I think. Um,
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
no. My area of interest, actually, for both undergraduate and postgraduate dissertation, was early sacred music. It was organ music at undergraduate, and a particular manuscript in the British Library. It's a post-Reformation manuscript, but it has a lot of pre-Reformation music in it, and all sorts of questions as to why was this therefore being sung, and a lot of transcribing of those parts. So
Okay.
that's the simple answer.
Thank you, because I understand some of those words, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
So what sort, when you say early music, just give me a time frame in terms of century.
Tudor.
Tudor, right.
Let's go for Tudor.
Okay, so I gave up history before I got to O level because it didn't really get on terribly well with Miss Pinder at the time. So Tudor would be, this is, I'm going to give me a number.
Second half of the 1500s.
Thank you, thank you. Because I was going to say that, and then I didn't want to embarrass myself in case
Yeah.
anybody might watch us, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's an area of musical interest to you. That kind of early music.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating too, with obviously all the changes that were going on with the setting up of the Church of England and Catholicism and so on and so forth, and how they're reflected in music. There are very, very different styles. There are, you know, up to and including the obvious things like, is it Latin text or English text? And you can find the same texts, you know, the same music set to both sacred and secular, and you know, different styles, and actually how some of these composers were good enough that they managed to keep their heads despite being Catholic and such. Like it's a fascinating, you know, I find it, I love history anyway, but I find it absolutely fascinating, and I just adore the music.
So a thought just occurs to me with your two teenage children.
Hmm.
Their musical interests might be very different.
They might.
Are you in tune, excuse the pun, with any of the kind of music that they listen to, or do
Oh,
they
very
come
much
round
so.
and go, "Oh no, please go and sit somewhere else with that noise"?
Oh no, no, they are definitely classical musicians, the pair
Oh
of them.
right,
They can't stand this pop rubbish.
right. Oh okay.
Their words, not mine. Theirs, not mine.
Yeah.
No, no, they're young Katie, who is 12. Um, young Katie, who is 12,
Yeah,
um,
going on whatever.
is a
22.
double bass player.
Okay.
I recently bought a new car so that when she gets the next size double bass, I can fit it in it.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
Um, so yeah, she's a double bass player. My son plays the violin.
Right. Easier to manage.
Yeah. Um, they both play the piano, unsurprisingly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sam, well, what do you give a 14-year-old for his birthday? I gave him organ shoes because he was starting organ lessons the following week. And Katie is really fed up that she's not starting yet. She has very big ambitions. Sam merely wants to play Vidor on Salisbury Cathedral. Katie has her eyes on the Albert Hall, I understand.
Oh, okay, fine. So we need to watch these children of yours because one day they may be on BBC Proms or Young
Well,
Musician of the Year or something.
not Sam. He's going to be a railway engineer. I come from a railway family,
Okay,
so that's not at all surprising and entirely plausible and possible. Katie, well, we wait to see. We
okay.
wait to see. They do turn up down at Fordingbridge Church occasionally, but they're very often with their dad on Sundays. So, um, at the moment, anyway. So they're sort of sporadic at church, but and they both sing. They both, strangely enough, spend half their life singing in choirs.
Who saw that coming? None of us. Well, we did.
No, no, I mean their parents didn't meet singing in a church choir or anything like that.
Oh, I see. Right, fair enough. Okay, I'm getting a strong theme here.
What,
The
church and music? Yeah, that'd be it.
That's it. So I don't know the answer to this question, obviously, because otherwise I wouldn't be asking it. But so when you're not playing music, and obviously when we planned to talk this morning, you said to me 10 o'clock would be about right. So it's about contemporary to the time it will go out next week.
Yeah,
Um, and I said, well, it could be a bit earlier. And you said, well, I will be up early, but I will be practicing because
yeah,
I've got several things I need to practice for. So
yep.
when you're not playing, when you're not practicing, is your house quiet, or is there music in the background somewhere?
That's a really good question, actually, and the answer is it depends. You'll laugh at this. My mum and dad are not at all musical, and in their household, the radio went on when we went out, so burglars would know that there was somebody in.
Yes.
So I've kind of grown up without having music in the background. When I think of it, I put it on unless I'm trying to do something else. It depends what I'm trying to do, because I do find that if I'm trying to work, I can't have it on in the background because it draws me in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very fussy about what I'll have on in the car
Mm-hmm.
as well, for exactly the same reasons, and that sort of thing. So if the kids are here, the house is generally quite noisy, I will say.
You don't need
But
any other noise, do you? No.
well, and it's also practice going on. There's a lot of practice goes on in this house.
Right.
So, but yeah,
I've
no.
never, like you, I've never understood the concept. When I was younger and I was studying teacher training and all those sorts of things, people used to say, I need the radio on to do my work. And I used to think, no, I can't be doing with that. I can't listen to the radio and try to study at the same time. But some
No.
people seem to be able to achieve that. But I can understand as a musician, I think, how difficult that would be for you, because you'd be listening thinking, is that piece,
Yeah,
that bit there that I know, or is it something else? It would be too much, wouldn't it, pulling you
yeah.
in a direction?
I will admit that the most tedious part, I think, of my admin that I end up doing is school reports, and I do almost invariably have music on in the background in when I'm doing those.
Right.
I'm quite glad of the distraction quite often.
I remember one of my early conversations with Gary when I arrived in Fordingbridge. I said, we were talking about Evensong, and I said, I'd be very happy to try and help lead the Evensong services. I said, but are they sung? And he said, well, they can be, or they don't have to be. And I said, well, they'd better not be if it's me, because I don't really sing. I enjoy singing, but he said, everyone, everyone can sing, Ruth. You have a voice of the angel, but you just haven't found it yet. And I thought, well, that's a nice thing to say, but I'm not sure it's true. But do you believe that?
Yeah,
Everybody can essentially sing.
I have encountered only one or two people along the lines that have genuine problems pitching a note, and I think if you can pitch a note, you can sing. And actually, yes, I think everybody can sing. I think we've got to a point, if you go back to sort of 100, 200 years, everybody sung. It's what they did. I think we've got to the point where people think, I can't sing, because they don't feel they're as good as what is being presented to them by media or by, some external expectation.
Yeah.
But the joy of music is just doing it. I teach children, obviously, of all ages and stages, some of whom have got talent, some of whom maybe haven't. But but that doesn't mean that they don't get anything out of it, which is fascinating. And in fact, there was one child who I taught who had all sorts of issues, and this child is probably the most rewarding child I have ever taught, because he would come into me sometimes in a dreadful mood, sometimes very distracted, sometimes we would get things done, sometimes we would not go near the piano, sometimes I would play to him, sometimes we would go and rage the percussion, and I would always follow his lead, and he would always go back to class much happier, much more relaxed. And the teacher said to me on one occasion, what do you do? I said, we make music. That's all, in whatever form.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I can identify with that, because although I don't think I sing well, I do enjoy singing. I mean, my childhood included guides, and we had the most wonderful guide captain who taught us campfire songs, and it was a great thrill. We learned hundreds of songs, and now to this day, in my mid-60s, if I'm driving home late at night, excuse me, and I'm feeling a bit sleepy, the campfire songs come out,
Yeah.
because I have to sing something to keep myself going, really. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can
I,
really.
I will admit I have a particular CD, I won't say what it is, that I always have in the car when I'm driving home from Wareham Choral, which is very often late at night. And
Yeah,
there's something about having the same rhythm of, the same CD. And sort of track one is Watch Out for Deer in the Road.
right.
Track two is track two is just sublime. Is quite a few roundabouts. Track three is quite lively. Track four is you've got 1, 2, 3 roundabouts, and then you turn right, and so on and so forth. I know sort of the route is inherently associated with this disc that I frequently listen to, and I jokingly say it guides me home safely each week.
Excellent. Is it a CD that you compiled, or is it one
No,
that is off the
no.
shelf? Right,
No,
as it
it
were.
is it's a favourite one off the shelf, but as I say, I won't say what it is. But
No, 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 no. I won't ask. That's absolutely fine, of course. So when you're not involved in music, because there must be points in your life when you're not. You've told us that
yeah.
you do things like walking,
Hmm.
photography, obviously the children, the dog, and I know you have a cat sitting very close
Yes,
by this
yeah,
morning.
he has settled down. He's not going to interrupt. I don't think he can be a complete pain in Zoom calls. So
What other things are you up to, Hazel, if I can ask?
there's not a lot of time left after all
There
of that,
can't
I
be.
have to
What
say. But I
is
do
music?
enjoy. I
Sorry, is
do
music
enjoy.
relaxation for you? Is music
Sorry.
relaxation for you as well? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you do enjoy. I'm sorry I interrupted.
I enjoy baking, and particularly cakes, particularly when the children's birthdays come round. I'm waiting for my instructions for next year. What did we have this year? Oh, my son Sam had the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars,
Oh,
and um, trying to
impressive.
remember trying to remember what Katie had this year. Last year she had an orange cat. I can't remember what she had this year. So I do enjoy that sort of thing. But I enjoy baking in general, which is something that Katie seems to have inherited. So yeah, and actually, in all honesty, I enjoy history. I enjoy visiting places. I've just had a few days away and had a lovely time with dear friends. We ended up. My maiden name is Gainsbury, and family tradition has it that it's a corruption of Gainsborough.
Of course.
Um, and I was in Lincolnshire, and we went to Gainsborough Old Hall.
Ah,
Therefore, you have to, which is the most wonderful building, and I love the sort of the history of these and the how did people live, and that sort of touching history.
mm.
Um, and so on. So I enjoy that sort of thing. As you rightly said, I enjoy walking with or without dog. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I asked you to just maybe have a little think overnight because we talked yesterday about maybe I think this is a difficult question probably for a musician. I maybe a favorite hymn, maybe a favorite piece in the Bible or a prayer. Have you come up with anything this morning, Hazel, that you can share with us? Have
I
you?
went through many, 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 many in my mind. It's interesting, as you say, as a musician, there are various pieces of music which have such strong associations with people or place or occasion. But I think probably my absolute favourite hymn, just as a hymn to sing and just as the sentiments is Angel Voices Ever Singing.
Right, lovely.
And that wonderful phrase, craftsman's art and music's measure for thy pleasure all combine.
That sums it all up, doesn't it?
It
Really,
does, doesn't it?
sums it up. It
Yeah, it's
actually, I think it sums you up to quite a lot,
yeah,
doesn't it? Yeah, yeah,
there's, yes,
lovely.
yes,
Um, it may be that the people who put together the film might be able to find a version of it.
yep,
We'll wait and see next week. Um,
indeed.
Otherwise, Hazel, thank you so much for talking this morning. It's been lovely to get to know you a bit better.
And you.
And I hope that we meet on many occasions and all of us, I know, enjoy the benefit of the musical abilities of so many people. So thank you for that, and thank you for your time.
That's all right. It's a pleasure.
Have a rest of the good day, or a good rest of the day. That's the right way round.
Thank you.
Bye, Hazel. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.